Hello, welcome to Expedition Homestead. In today's episode, we're going to be planting the world's largest willow tree cutting. My name is Ripley. Here on this channel, we build your passion for growing through simple yet effective and affordable means of increasing your harvest and bringing more beauty to your gardens at home. Today, we are going to be planting the biggest willow tree cuttings you have ever seen in your whole life. I mean, these are straight up logs that we propagated about 5 weeks ago. I'll tell you the backstory to how we got these bad boys and what we've done to them so far to get them to grow. But first, you've got to take a look at those beautiful roots. We've got some really nice ones up high, but these down below, these really thick ones, these are giving me the most hope because I know those are very well established roots that are coming out of this propagated willow cutting here. This cutting's about 36 inches long and has a diameter of about 6.5 inches as well. So very big. We've got one that is a little bit smaller here. Also doing quite well. We've got some really strong root growth on this one. And then the thickest cutting of them all, this is about a good 7 inches in diameter here. Also doing well, not quite as much growth as the other ones. We were actually out visiting Holy Hill about 5 weeks ago, and we were on our way back home when I saw somebody chopping down a big old willow tree that was overhanging a pond on their property. I told my wife, stop the car. We've got to turn around, go back and talk to that guy and see if he can give us a few of his willow logs. I've always been curious on whether or not we could get willow logs like this to root. We've done many different sizes of willow propagations in the past on this channel, from about the size of a pencil to maybe about 1.5 inches, up until the one we did last year over here behind me that was about 4 feet tall and almost 2 inches in diameter. That was the biggest one we did up to date. You know me though, I had to raise the stakes and see if we could take these logs and propagate them using our water propagation method. There's nothing special to what we're doing here. We're just taking buckets, 5-gallon buckets, filling them with water, and then making sure that we change out the water about once every week and a half, so that way it doesn't get all nasty, especially when it comes in terms of mosquito larvae and stuff like that. They have grown very well. Now, I am nervous at this point as to what they're going to do after I plant them, because I know they're going to grow very well just sitting in water. They're going to root out and continue growing, but I want to make sure that these are established enough in the soil by the end of the growing season so they survive throughout the winter. So we're gonna experiment even further with this and plant these in 3 different locations. Location 1, we've got our willow tree here, a pear tree here, and then we're gonna put our brand new propagated willow tree right over here. This is the wettest area of our yard. This part of our yard actually gets standing water in it after a heavy rainfall, so the willow tree will definitely like it. Now, my method for planting this successfully is going to be using wood chips. So we're going to be putting a lot of wood chips in that soil to help those roots establish themselves and grow. The hardest part of this is going to be transferring it from water to soil. I've done it in the past just fine with all sorts of cuttings, except for just nothing even close to this big. So that's why I'm taking extra precautions with the wood chips. Normally I just use soil for this step. While I got the little guy working back there, let us sit and wonder at this beautiful yarrow. I was thinking it might have been a Queen Anne's lace, but we don't see any of the signature dot in the center there. So beautiful specimen. I mean, this is almost, actually I would say that's 5 feet tall right there. Gorgeous, almost taller than some of our sunflowers that we've got growing. I love it. And of course we are growing mullein because we are good people here at Expedition Homestead. Let that mullein grow. This whole area is just turning out really, really great. Willow tree, which we will prune back very heavily next year. I'll talk about more of that in a later video. Just gorgeous. Kind of like filling in this whole back area along the fence, which is right next to our vegetable gardens, if you're not aware. Very excited for it, and adding this willow bonsai will also be a treat. Got it?
Can I pour the water in?
Let's see. Let's go that way with it. And put it right there.
I'm getting ready. Getting ready for the pouring dirt, Dad, okay?
Yep, can you just start pouring dirt in there? Okay, lots of wood chips. All the dirt up on top of it. Okay, now what do we need to do?
Pour that in.
Sure, we can pour the willow water in. That's a good idea, because willow water is good for rooting. So hopefully just by dumping our bucket that it's been sitting in will help.
That's really good for plants.
Gonna kind of divot it out a little bit towards the center. Oops, I'm gonna divot it out a little bit towards the center. That way I can make sure that the water is holding in there very well. And now we've got to get the hose and soak it. All right, there we go. We're gonna let this soak for about 5 or 10 minutes. And while we're doing that, let's plant the next one. Our next one, we're gonna try growing it in a bucket to see what we can do as far as this goes. The reason why I'm experimenting with this is thinking later down the line, if I wanna grow some willow bonsais for sale, can I chop up logs from somebody's house, propagate them, grow them in a bucket, and then sell them a year down the line? So we're just gonna take the smallest one, pop it in there, and then I have a mix of wood chips and compost right here. Say it's not pure compost, but it's like a compost soil mixture, so it's got a little bit of soil in there as well, but we've got all kinds of nice microbes and fungi in this because of the wood chips that we're breaking down in my backyard, and then the compost will provide all that bacteria and microorganisms as well that we need, as well as a good solution of fertilizer. I gotta get my scooper. All right, much better. Okay, our last willow is done soaking now, so grab the hose and soak this one. Now we let that one soak for a little bit. And last, we have our failed willow tree propagation that we took in the front of the house. What I'm thinking happened with this one is we did not do a water propagation at all. We stuck it right into the soil, and I'm assuming I introduced some sort of disease to the cutting because it just did not shoot out any roots whatsoever before it was dead. So if you're gonna be doing cuttings of any sort with your willow trees, like always, make sure your equipment is sanitized, unlike I did this time around. Oops. But what we can do now is take our whole back that we were gonna have that willow tree in and make one that's even bigger. So we got some really nice soil in here from last time, which is great, so that should help. Now is probably a good time to mention, if you are digging in your backyard, call Digger's Hotline, otherwise you have a nice big bill on your hands. It's an easy call. They'll come out within usually 3 days and mark all of the utility lines so you don't get your hands covered in doo-doo when you cut through somebody's internet cable and they're very upset with you. Just like before, we're going to be putting in wood chips and soil. Just kind of mixing them in there. No scientific method behind this. I could realistically probably do all wood chips and I think they would grow great. A lot of commercial growers use sawdust when propagating cuttings, you know, smaller cuttings of course, but we should expect to have the same results with bigger cuttings as well. Like before, just making a little bit of a divot so that water holds when we get rains. Plus when I water it, I can make a nice pool around the base of the willow tree. All right, let's talk about continued care of these bad boys. Even though this is a huge experiment, I've never done this before. Can't find anybody else on YouTube who's done this either, so we will see how it goes. But what we've got to do is make sure these stay wet. I mean, you're going to want to soak them for several minutes every day for really for the next couple of weeks at least. See how they do from that point on. You will get these leaves drooping if you've got one where it shot out growth. Your growth will definitely droop down a little bit. Keep it watered, keep at it, keep them in lots of sunlight, and we will see how they grow from here on out. One of the coolest facts about this experiment that we've experienced so far is that when we took these logs from that guy's house, they had no growth on them whatsoever. They were just plain old logs, no branches coming from them. And just by sticking them into the water and letting them sit for a couple of weeks, we had new branches coming out of that log, new growth and life stemming from something that would have otherwise been considered dead at that point. Something that had already been chopped down and removed from its life-supporting base. This story could also hold true when it comes to our lives, and specifically our spiritual growth and our spiritual walk through God. Sometimes we might find ourselves in the depths of a chasm, seemingly with no escape, no route out, in the darkest depths of experiences that we hope we never have to experience again. But yet, if we are given just a simple watering of life, that's sometimes all it takes to make an entire change, a drastic change in our life and the course that follows after that. We did the same thing with this willow tree, and I hope that you can do the same thing to somebody else today that might be struggling. If you feel that somebody that you know is struggling or going through some issues, it might be a lot darker than you would think. So I encourage you to reach out, to lend a loving hand to them. You never know who might need it. With that being said, happy gardening, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Hey, bud.
Here.